The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the individual or individuals and do not necessarily reflect the views of the producers, network, or advertising partners of Business Bridge Media. The following program contains thoughts, discussions, and views of a mature nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
That's how I knew. That's how I knew that I was different. I seen it. I thought it. I dreamt it. I said it. I did it. I made it. I tasted it. I love it. I need it.
Hey guys, my name is Jaylen Montez, and you guys are tuning in into Cheap Dope. You're probably wondering what does cheap dope stand for. It is short for cheap dopamine. That is a term I like to use for what describes what is destroying our generation, especially with young men. Primarily on this show, I'm primarily focused on trying to build young men into resilient individuals to uplift everybody else in their family, friends, and overall community to cause a trickle effect throughout our country because we need young leaders. Also, other topics on the show, we'll dive into what's going on in the world. I'll speculate on them, and I'll give my own assumptions of how we can solve those issues of what's going on in this country. So, sorry, getting a call. And that's the main topic of this show. So let's get straight into it. Okay, let's get straight into it. There's a lot of topics I want to talk about. Number one, let's talk about cheap dopamine. What is cheap dopamine? Okay, it's literally what this show's named after. Cheap dopamine is any low frequency activity that's going to give you dopamine release. That could be from watching porn. That can be from living for the weekend, trying to get hammered and chase those drinks, drugs, anything that's going to lower your frequency and bring you to a lower state, but that is cheap. It's easy activities to get that dopamine release, and y'all wonder why you're so addicted to it because you're getting dopamine. That's why y'all can't get off porn. That's why y'all living for the weekend. I can't tell you how many people I see every single weekend just going out. And it's not, but what are y'all celebrating for? You go out there and you get plastered, and you're going to the club, you're standing around and you're chasing, but why? You never seem to think that, and if you really think about it, you're addicted to that. You're addicted to the drink. The only way for you to make yourself feel good in a social setting is to have a drink. Really think about that. Those are cheap dopamine releases. So let's kind of go one by one. Why is porn bad? Okay. First of all, that is probably one of the main major issues with young men nowadays is porn. Think of any guy can go on his phone in a matter of seconds and look up any girl he wants naked and be able to masturbate to whatever and get his dopamine release from that. And you don't realize what it's doing to your brain. It's actually frying your dopamine receptors in your brain. And it's literally shown in studies and everything to do negative effects, not only on the brain, but also make it to when you're actually in person with a woman, you're not as turned on. Like it's literally messing with your, and then it kills your ambition. You have no reason to go out. Like in the 60s, listen, my dad's 75 years old. He was not born in 1948, grew up through all old school. Back then, you had to be somebody to get any girl you want. You couldn't just sit at home. There wasn't no Facebook. There wasn't no Instagram. Wasn't no Tinder. None of that. You had to go out and be somebody. It's that simple. But now with social media, the OnlyFans, the porn and everything, it's killing young men's ambition to want to go out and do that because they can get all their dopamine release and their sexual satisfaction just through going online on their phone. So it's destroying your brain, and it's also just it's destroying relationships. You know, there's people that lose relationships over porn, marriages, everything. And it does more harm than good. So if you're doing that, obviously you need to stop doing it. Let's talk about topic number 2, alcohol, living for the weekend. That's also killing your ambition. You guys got to realize too, look, I'm 23. They are young 20s, and especially young men around my age, or you could be a teenager. Our young years are the most vital years of our life. Now, there's people later in life that are successful and they don't start till later in life. But wouldn't you want to already lay your foundation for success while you're young so you can prosper and grow later in your life when you're older? That's what And you're pouring all of your energy and wasting so much energy of just trying to go out on the weekend, get fucked up with your homies, drink a whole bunch of, get absolutely plastered. And then that's the only way you can get your dopamine release, because you're killing your ambition just right there. But you should be getting your dopamine release through actual rewards, actual activity. I get mine just through showing up and going to the gym. I get my dopamine release when I'm in the gym. I see that pump, whatever, makes me want to push more. I get dopamine release when I get a sell, helps me want to push forward and get more. Y'all push forward and get more on the wrong things, okay? So if you're not understanding what I'm talking about just on these few topics right here, I really don't know what else to, because that is killing y'all from being the best version of yourselves. You're destroying your brain with porn. You're destroying your brain with alcohol. Not even to mention, you go on Andrew Huberman's podcast, whatever. Look at the alcohol effects on the brain. It's crazy. And I've seen it with my family. I got a close, basically older brother of mine. He's really my nephew. But, he was in the frat and he was drinking all the time. And I got photos of him whenever he was out in Dixon Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, drinking, getting hammered all the time. He got fat, he got depressed, had a whole bunch of anxiety. His self-image of himself was tanked because he was pouring. The reason why it was so tanked, because he was doing nothing but low frequency activities, the easy thing. He had bad FOMO. All of his friends were going out. He had to go out because everybody else was doing it. And I'm like, dude, what are you celebrating? And it took a huge, real man-to-man talk between him and I. And I'm like, yo, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, what are you doing? Like, look at you, man. Like, oh, I'm depressed. I'm like, look, no wonder you're depressed. You can't get off the bars, man. You're fat. I mean, he's a good, now listen, I had to really hit it hard with him and hit where it hurts. And that, love ain't lies. I'd rather cause temporary discomfort than a permanent grave. I told him straight up, and he cut back on the drinking, got into the gym with me in a matter of 4 or 5 months, got lean, got good bicep veins out and everything. I mean, looking great. And it's crazy how changing your small habits can do so much. But all he did, and now he doesn't even really like drinking. You're talking to a dude that could pound. I'm talking drink a bottle of Tito's out the bottle, like almost half the bottle in one go. And to now where he doesn't even really have a desire for it. But that's where he used to have a desire all the time. And why? Because he changed the little things. He focused on his daily habits. He tapped in with his fitness, his faith, and what he was putting inside of his body and his brain. And he started realizing that alcohol was slowing him down, and he knew he was living for the weekend. He wasn't celebrating shit. And that's the reason why he was exactly where he's at. And for him, he wants to be successful just like I do. It runs in the family, and completely now he's on that wavelength. He's really just focused on elevating his life completely, which I am thankful for. Okay. But y'all got to stop. Like, you're pouring your energy into the wrong things, and you wonder why you don't have any energy to pour into your own self, your own business. And now is the time, especially young teenager or young 20s. Now is the time for us to start focusing on becoming the ultimate version of ourselves now. And I'm going to tap into this next topic. Okay. So now we get cheap dopamine, but now we're getting attacked from all different angles, right? So porn, the cheap dopamine route, it's constantly all the time on our phone. You can go on Instagram and see an OnlyFans model's freaking ad on a meme page, and you're like, what the hell is this? Right? And it's everywhere. And then alcohol, and then that's just part of society. A lot of people fall into is being the sheep and following everybody else with alcohol, and getting fucked up on the weekends. But let's talk about one of the main issues where we're being attacked on, and that is through our young men. One thing I like to talk about what's going on nowadays is mental castration of men. Okay? What is mental castration? Let's go back to physical castration. Let's go back to the to the Roman Empire. The Romans used to go around to the young Greek boys in other countries, around and they would literally try to kill them or chop their balls off. Why? Why would they castrate them? Because they knew if they feared those young boys as a threat to their future of control, right? They feared that those young boys would grow up to be men and revolt against them in the future. There's no difference from whenever you castrate a bull, so he's not as mean and won't try to freaking ram you. That is exactly what's going on though in our society mentally. And how, let me go right here. Why do they want mental castration? And who is they? In my assumptions, in my opinion, you can put my tinfoil hat on. I believe there's a group of elite individuals involved with the government, people that with a lot of money that run this world, are intentionally trying to mentally castrate men to weaken us so we don't revolt and go against their control of power. Okay? Why do they want that? Because if you have a country full of strong men, you can't implement their ideologies, their ideas. You cannot control them. A real man always leads his own. He protects his family. He doesn't let anybody come between that and doesn't care the measures of what he has to do to be able to protect their family. But if you can weaken and castrate the bull over time, they won't buck back. They won't fight back. You throw something in front of them, they won't budge. And that is what they intentionally want. And it's so far it's being very successfully done in our generation, me being 23, your low 20s and younger, even older. Okay. They do that for control so that there's no leaders. There's no leadership in the country. How are they causing mental castration? I just talked about it on cheap dopamine. You got to realize through porn, social media, music, all sorts of things that you got to realize there's no difference from your brain diet to your actual physical diet. So some of the music that you're listening to is literally talking about you being depressed, or even want to talk about rap, it's talking about, we can get into that later. It's talking about killing people and everything, right? But they also do it through social media. There's a lot of falsehood to social media, how people live their lives and everything. But one of the main things is through porn. I mean, I keep talking about porn because that is a huge, huge, huge deal. If you they're killing the young men to be able to go out and live an ambitious life. Also, toxic masculinity movement, talking about how if you're a masculine man, you're strong, you want to be a leader and everything. That's toxic. So then reframing to young men and everything to refrain from those characteristics, those traits of being a strong masculine man. That's toxic. Not even to mention through what they're doing to kids nowadays in schools, talking about, bringing in gender ideology into kids, telling young boys. This is one thing I like to compare to. Back in World War II, 13-year-olds were lying about about their age just so they could go to the war and fight for their country. But nowadays, 13-year-olds don't even know what gender they are. How is that? Why was that a thing? It's mainly the school, and the government controls the schools, and you got teachers in there telling your young boys and girls, it's okay if you feel like a girl. It's okay if you feel like a boy. Listen, my mom is lesbian, okay? But she grew up back in a time that wasn't taught in school. That wasn't taught. She's developing her faith and she's changed her sexuality. But growing up as a kid, she was lesbian. She never indoctrinated me with that. I always thought the woman that was with her was just her friend. I didn't know whenever I was a kid because she protected me from that. She didn't. And then she also wasn't telling me that if I felt like I was a girl, I could identify as that. Think about that. Think about that. At a young age, they're talking to kids when they're not even in puberty yet. And you're confusing them. I don't remember being taught that when I was a kid. I don't. Do you? Why now? So, I mean, over this time, little things, what's going on is slowly influencing men to act like women. And we got now on the opposite side, they're influencing women to act like men. That's why I bet, the boss bitch wave came, independent. Listen, there's nothing wrong about an entrepreneur woman or anything, right? But throughout time and time in history, and I can go back to biblical faith in the Bible, the man has always been the leader of the household. But the mother and the father are just as equal. Always. And there's also, I'll save that for, I'm going to talk about fatherhood and motherhood later on. But the reason why they do this is because as long as they cause women to act like men and men to act like women, there's going to be division and feud between the two. And they're destroying the nuclear family. And at the end of the day, men have always been, let's go back to I don't know, Native American days. Okay. All the guys were out there hunting the buffalo, dragging the skin back, all this stuff. Who was staying back and taking care of the children, cleaning the hide and cooking the food for whenever the men came back? If you go back to literally like survival outdoors, people go back to their gender roles, right? But why do they want to reverse that? Because they know if they get the men not to go out there and serve and protect and everything, they can control the society. They can indoctrinate your kids. They can tell your young boy or girl that he can feel the opposite way or identify as something else, as a cat or something. Like, it's ridiculous. And there's no father in their household, or not a present father or a weak father, that's not able to teach them the right morals and foundation of what made America today strong. Go back to 1940s, 50s, 60s. I just understand this from a different view because my dad's 75 years old. He's very old school. You look at any old school guy, they are not out here talking about the stuff that our kids or dudes are talking about nowadays. They carry themselves with respect, dignity, good intent. They sacrificed a lot in their life, very hard workers. But if that diminishes, you just get weak. The society just gets weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. So this is why I go to weak men leads to weak society. I pretty much just talked about the male and mental castration. But why does weak men to weak society? So let's talk about fatherless kids. Either no father or a weak father. That is a fatherless kid. It doesn't matter if you're a weak father. It doesn't matter. If you're not, that can do more damage than good. I saw this quote that somebody said, "I'd rather have a strong single mother, than a mother and a weak father." And why is that so vital? It's shown that in statistics that kids without a father are 10 times more likely to be on drugs, get in prison. Like, just those two alone. They're in. Also, why? And let's talk about this. Why we have not having a father is so because there's no guidance, there's no structure in a man's life. Have there been kids without a father, with a strong mother that led them a good, successful, virtuous life? Yes, 110%. But to be honest with you, that statistic is actually very, very low. Having that guidance, that male figure in your life can do so much in impacting kids. It can do so much. And you lead those kids astray. You let other ideologies get into them, or there's no guidance. They're going to be crumbled and trampled in the real world. People don't realize how good we have it here in America. People really don't. You go to these other third world countries, like, where there's no stability. There's no guidance. You go to Africa, you got terrorist groups like Al-Shabaab going through villages and murdering everybody, right? And the reason why America, the reason why we got our free country, the reason why we're able to do the things we do, or I'm even to sit on this podcast and talk the way I feel, is because of our founding fathers and because of strong young men who had good leadership skills and cared about the freedom of everybody, and they're willing to put their life on the line, and they did. They put their life on the line for that. But if you got weak men that are not willing to put their life on the line, then that's how you get trampled. Like, I literally don't know the confusion in that. I think it's very straightforward what I'm talking about here. Now, let's talk about weak fathers or no fathers when it comes to women. Why do women have OnlyFans nowadays? And who supports it? So, number one, women have OnlyFans because it's the age of attention. They can post a picture on Instagram and immediately get 50 comments, 100 DMs of all dudes trying to get in their pants. But at the end of the day, weak men are supporting that attention. Also, so then if women that resort to OnlyFans that are sexualizing themselves and selling their nudes and stuff, who's buying those nudes? Who's doing that? Weak men are doing that. The no real man that's trying to live an ambitious life or anything, it's not the bashy women, but they're not going to partake in that or buy nudes or anything like that, because that's a low frequency activity that shows you're not confident in yourself. And just thinking about paying for that, like, it just blows my mind. I can't comprehend it really, but that alone, weak men are supporting weak men that can't control their lust, their emotions, etc., are supporting these women to act provocative and do the things they're doing. And at the end of the day, that's the only reason why these women are doing it, because they're like, hell, like, they're making so much money, but also not even to mention how much more damage it's doing to those women too, because they're so addicted to that attention. But it's killing them mentally more than anything. And I've talked to a girl I knew who actually just opened up about it later, that she's quit OnlyFans, how it literally was just destroyed her life. And she was trying to pretend that I was making it, but it's because weirdo dudes were funding her and paying her $5,000 a month. Like, it's crazy, right? But also, you guys got to realize too, is real fathers wouldn't allow their daughter to have an OnlyFans. And daughters with a real father that taught them good morals wouldn't think about having an OnlyFans. So thinking about the demoralization. Back in 2010, or back then, if a girl's news or whatever got leaked or something, it was the end of the world for her. It was the end of the world. Look at Miley Cyrus. Whenever that whole Sheets deal, whatever, everybody saw it. It was the end of the world. But now, it's justified. You got ads everywhere. Girls are flexing it now. And why is it that way? Because weak men are the ones supporting it. It's that simple. They can't control their lust, they can't control their emotions, and they're spending all their money in their mom's basement at 45 years old, spend all their life savings. Their mom's like on girls OnlyFans. Okay? So there's, I can go on and on and on and on about, but like, would you want, let's put it like this, like we're things are tensing up in this world. This is why I'm starting this podcast. Things are really tensing up. A lot of serious shit can happen from here into the end of this year. What happens if Russian troops try to jump the soil? What happens if China tries to jump the soil? Look at our border, right? You got all these illegals from not just Mexico, none of that. You got El Salvador, but you also got Syria. You got military-aged Chinese males coming in this country. What happens when they all armed up and they're just like attacking cities and stuff? Wouldn't you want strong men that are ready to protect and die on their soil for their country and to protect their family? Because right now it's not heading in that direction. There's a lot of soft motherfuckers, but there's also some strong men, but it's in very certain locations. There's not how it was back in the day where everybody was willing to put their life on the line for this country. World War II is a perfect example I love to use for that, because kids were lying about their age to go fight for their country. And nowadays, when I literally just talk about, like, kids don't even know who they are anymore. They don't know what gender. They don't know what this. They're being poisoned in the brain, and especially young men. And if our generation of young men is so vital, because we're the future of this country, we're the future leaders, we're the ones who are going to be the future fathers. We need to have young leaders that are willing to stand up and protect and stand up for what's coming in the future, because it's not looking pretty. And the more, if we keep continuing to go down this path, it is going to be destructive, because there's going to be no guidance, no support. I mean, imagine like you working at a place and the manager's shit. Everything's right. Everybody's kind of doing what they want and everything. I mean, that's just kind of an example. You don't got no leadership in the household. It all starts in the household, and then it spreads out to the community, and it spreads out everywhere else. Okay, let's go. I can talk for hours on that, but let's go into another topic I want to talk about is controlling your emotions. This goes back into everything I'm talking about, weak men, mental castration. A lot of that is leading to men not being able to control their emotions. There's no physical adversity that they face. Everything's so comfort. They're so stuck on their phone, laptop. They don't leave the house. They sit there porn all day, all sorts of things. And those are the people that are the most dangerous. Why? Because if something comes up or someone pisses them off or anything like that, you look at any mass shootings and stuff like that, they're mentally ill people. And some men and stuff. I mean, if you want to talk about, a sensitive topic too, the Uvalde shooting, that kid was in a very weak mindset. That kid that shot up that school. He was shot his grandma. I mean, think about that. Think about the poison from his brain, from social media, to being told. And he dressed up as a tranny. He was so confused about himself. He didn't have no guidance, no structure, or anybody to guide him in his life. Okay, and he goes shoots up a school full of kids. Think about that. They don't want to talk about that though. And do you know what that is? That's not being able to control your emotions. Shot and killed his own grandma before he went to go kill those kids. I wonder why he did that. His grandma was known to be a very good Christian woman that was not support of what he was talking about. And it seemed like his emotions got himself the best of him and took that into killing people and innocent children. That's what also leads to abuse. Weak men too are also what's causing some doing emotional damage to women nowadays. There's a lot of women that are very skeptical of getting in a relationship with another dude and very skeptical of that and very easy to jump to conclusions because the previous dude that they were with was so insecure, couldn't control his emotions, super over jealous, constantly thinks she's out there cheating, putting their hands on him, emotionally manipulating, gaslighting, etc. because they can't control their emotions. They're not a leader and they're weak. Think about what damage that does. It's crazy. We can talk about this all day, how a weak man does so much damage that any good. It is crazy. And, and overall hard times on others. That's why I'm super blessed. My dad was arrested, went to federal prison before I was 1 year old. I didn't get to see him until I was 9. But ever since I got with my dad, he completely changed my life. He was there. He taught me at a young age how the only thing you got in this world is your word and your balls, and you can't break them for nobody. Be a man of your word. Have good character. And let me put it like this. Why having a good character, being really strong, mentally resilient, etc., can take you so far in life. One of his best friends was Don Tyson, and I remember my dad was about to do a business deal before he got arrested with Don, and my dad asked, "Why me? You got all these highfalutin guys from Yale, Harvard, etc. Why are you so stuck on me? Why do you want to do business with me?" And Don said, "Because you're a man of your word, and you got street smarts." How are you a man of your word? You obviously stick to what you say, but you live in being a man that's going to get the 8th richest man in the world to tell you that, want to hang out with you and all that, and not having any college degree or anything. It takes having good character. Obviously, to have good character, you got to be emotionally resilient, having good intent, and taking care of others. That's why my dad can go anywhere around the area we live in, and everybody knows him. Everybody's got full respect because all he did was take care of others. That's all he did. Like, he had multiple businesses. He took care of all of his workers, overpaid them. He would go to low-income neighborhoods, buy ice cream for kids, etc. And he had a lot on his plate. A lot of other dudes that even had an ounce of the business and the stress that he had would have cracked and were not emotionally resilient. And I'll tell you this, for a man to go through 8 years of prison and come out, not even budging it, you know, and I remember asking him, Dad, how'd you do it? I came in and he said, son, you can't let the time do you. You got to do the time. And seeing so much mental strength, so much emotional resilience from him, seeing when friends were dying, you know, he wasn't breaking down and stuff. I'm like, this is what makes a man a man. This right here, his good intent, his good character, his ambitious life, but also just taking care of others. That's the whole point of man, is responsibility, taking care of people, leading. That's what makes a man. Not once, you know, that he acted out of character unless I deserved it. Let's put it like that. Okay. So touching on a lot of bases there. I mean, you know, mental castration, overall cheap dopamine leads to mental castration. Why weak men leads to a weak society. You know, it's so important for our young generation to be strong, mentally resilient leaders. We need more sheepdogs. We have too many sheep, and we lack those sheepdogs. We lack those leaders. Are in the future, we're going to crumble. You know, these other countries like Russia, China, they're teaching these kids how to clean guns at a young age. They're teaching them all this stuff. Right now, we're learning about gender ideology, and it's teaching in other critical race theory. Okay, and that's another thing I want to talk about too. It's not even, we're being attacked from all sorts of angles. Mental castrating, mentally castrated men is just one of many. One of the other things that is a huge problem in our country is the intentional division. I just talked about the intentional division between the man and the woman. They want us to feud between each other, so we're not able to create a nuclear family, generate strong American children to be able to lead and create a stronger society. They want us to be weak. They want us to be separated and divided as much as we can. United we stand, divided we fall. I mean, let's go back to 2020. We all know that was election year. BLM came in the story, right? And I talked to one of my brothers who is a black guy, one of my best friends. I remember telling him straight from the jump, like, listen, man, this stuff, I wasn't afraid to tell him it was all a scam. It was all intentionally division, but they throw race in there to bring emotion to the state of people and cause division on the floor. Queen Mary, I think it was Queen Mary, one of the Queen of England that day. I think it was Queen Bloody Mary, literally. I could be wrong. Quote me on this. Which queen talked about how cause division on the floor so they don't look up at the tower? Why is that? She wanted to create division between the peasants on the floors. They don't look up at the tower and realize who the real problem is. And that's exactly what's going on nowadays. And what they're trying to do through this intentional race. I mean, you look at everything, they're always talking about race. Morgan Freeman, they on a interview asked him, one of the guys asked him, how do we end racism? And he said, stop talking about it. Just stop talking about it. And they do this intentionally to make us weaker, because the more that we become united, the more we realize we don't need them, and then that they can't control us. But that's how they control us, is causing division through all sorts of standards. Okay. And you guys want to talk about race. One of my favorite people overall was Martin Luther King. I mean, everything he talked about, he said, I do not judge people off the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And he had so much influence because he had a dream. That's what he said. He had a dream that it didn't matter what color, everybody was working together. Everybody was flowing together. Everybody was united. That's why he got killed, because he had too many people, too much influence of unity. They knew this guy's a problem. If we let him go and everything, he's going to cause too much unity and we won't be able to control people for votes. Malcolm X, 2 days before he was assassinated, literally said the liberal white man will persuade himself as the friend to the black man, but not only uses them as pawns in their political football game. And he was assassinated 2 days later. If that don't show you guys got to do your history too, like that can just show you everything you need to know. the intentional division is for a reason, so they can, number one, get a vote. I mean, look at, you know, what they did. They pushed out BLM, threw in COVID. You know, we don't even want to talk about COVID, you know, destroying people's small businesses, putting fear-mongering people, like mentally damaging people, thinking, you know, into complete fear. Think about the damage that's done to that, forcing people to take an experimental medicine, denying doctors that were coming out and saying that you can treat it with ivermectin, you can treat it with hydroxychloroquine, making those doctors, some get arrested, some losing their medical license. It's intentional. And then while that was happening and everyone's freaking out with COVID, there's tens of thousands of people in the streets hugging next to each other, marching for equality. This is already the most diverse equality country ever. I mean, you got LeBron James is worth $1 billion. Michael Jordan worth $1 billion. There's people to cover. Why is it that Asian Americans are the most statistically wealthy families in America? Tell me what's not equal about that. That's why do you think people all over the country want to come here to America? Because it's the land of opportunity. But they want us to completely fight over, and really think about this, over the most illogical sense of thought by the pigment of your skin. You have to be a low IQ individual to really judge people and by the pigments of their skin. That's low IQ. When it comes to that, one quote I love to use from the military, because I was in the Army, and I remember there's supposedly some race stuff going on. And I remember my drill sergeant once said, "Hey, listen, motherfuckers, we all wear green and we all bleed red. There's no difference from the person to the left and right of you except for the name tag. We all wear green, we all bleed red. We're all wearing the same uniform. We're brothers and sisters going to fight for each other." And I mean, it talks about in the Bible, like there's no such thing as division. I mean, it's intentional. It is intentional. Because the more they can weaken us, the more they can control us. And at the end of the day, they want to push this new world order. They want us to be under one world government, have one digital currency, and control us and have us eating crickets for the rest of our fucking lives. Like, I mean, it's so crazy. I can sit here and talk for 6 hours, more than that, like months, just talking about all sorts of things of why they're attacking us from the weakening men. Why are they trying to cause race division in between gender and race? Also bringing in gender ideology. Okay, why? But then to really stamp it all and to talk about where is the foundation of this all comes from and what they're really attacking at the end of the day. Yes, it's multiple different things, but it's really under one overall moral entity, and it's God. They're trying to erase God. That is as simple as I can put it, because let me put an example. Okay, in Genesis 1, what is God's covenant? God's covenant was the rainbow. He left the rainbow as a sign of his covenant that he would not flood this earth again. Okay, that was the sign for God forever. The cross stands for Jesus, because that's what he resurrected. That's literally what he sacrificed himself on. The cross is a sign for Jesus. The rainbow is the sign of God. Now, what does the rainbow stand for? They took the rainbow, which was God's sign, and replaced it with something that goes completely against what he talks about in the Bible. What they talk about in the Bible. Completely against that. And if that don't show you tell you what I'm trying to come across with, I don't know what does. The demoralization through kids, weakening men, making men not want to be the leader of the household and set the standard for everybody else. Look at the killings in the streets nowadays too. And also I want to talk about this too, why erasing God. How do they influence erasing God without saying that you do not to believe in God? And they do that through the influence of Hollywood. They do that through music. People don't realize that Lucifer was the leader of worship in heaven. He specialized in music. And what y'all are listening to, think about it. When you're listening to music, you can't feel it. You can't see it. It's vibrations going into you. Like literally, the stuff that you're listening to is demonic. You're listening to it and you're seeing it. You're literally worshiping that music. You're going to a concert and you're listening to this, you're listening to this rapper or whatever and everything. You're worshiping him. You're singing as you're jumping and you're singing his music, you're worshiping. And all these people sold their souls to the devil. These billboard companies and everything signed their life away so they can get this money, rich and power and fame. And you can tell they sold just by listening to the lyrics. Some of them even talk about it. And no wonder you got girls acting provocative and more sexual than influenced now. I mean, let's look at that. I mean, you got songs called, like one of the number one songs in America was Wet Ass Pussy. Think about that. One of the number one songs, and it was 2022 or 20, was Wet Ass Pussy by Megan. Like, think about that. Other songs too, Gangster Red's talking about run up on people, bust their heads open, etc. Do you think that dudes are going to go do a drive-by? You think they're listening to Beethoven? Or they listen to some opera music? Or they listen to some real hood stuff that's going to get them that's talking about exactly what they're doing? It's influencing you. Not even to talk about the emo music or something that talks about being constantly depressed or sad and stuff. Now you wonder why people are so depressed, and because they're just feeding all this stuff that is literally intentionally to lower your frequency, or demoralize yourself, erase you from God, and carry you in a different direction. And how do I know this? Because I lived it. One of my favorite songs was the song called Myself by Nav. And it literally talked about, when I'm sober, I just don't like who I am. Roll me up some dope and I feel like myself again. Pull me up a 4 and I feel like myself again. Like literally he said, when I'm sober, I just don't like who I am. Pour me up a 4 and I feel like myself again. 4 ounce of lean. And then roll me up some dope and I feel like myself again. Pop a pill, I feel like myself again. Like, no wonder I was getting drunk before school. No wonder I couldn't, I was constantly smoking so many blunts throughout the day, because I was listening to this and I was living at such a low frequency, and I was doing, I'm not proud of my past. I don't think anybody is, but I understand this because I lived it and I recognize what was exactly going on. And it really took me learning that Lucifer was the leader of worship to realize, like, oh shit, he's actually influencing. And then you see all this satanic stuff, one another deal, how they're erasing God, and they're in, the devil's got, it talks about in the Bible, the devil owns this world. You got guys, another artist going on the Grammys, Sam Smith. He's got a song called Unholy. And he's out on stage in the Grammys in a fucking Satan skirt, dressed up as the devil. People are in a red circle dancing around him, performing a ritual right in front of us. And he's got a song called Unholy. And there's people singing that. Think about that. Really, just really think about it. Really contemplate and really think about what I'm telling y'all. And y'all are listening to this and you're supporting, you're putting this in your brain. And you're following those footsteps. Do you want to follow your footsteps to fire, or do you want to follow your footsteps to heaven? And yeah, and you're probably wondering, how did I learn all this stuff? How am I telling you all these things that I'm telling you right now? Because I went on a straight personal development journey of building my faith and chasing a fitness and just trying to become the ultimate version of myself. That's the reason why I started this podcast, because I want all of y'all to become mentally resilient, the best version of yourselves. I stuck in the gym. The moment I got into the gym and I started making progress, pushed myself through physical adversity, I developed more mental resilience. And I gained mental resilience in the military as well. Learned I was a leader in there. Realized my purpose. And then carried that out to the civilian world. And ever since I started to develop myself more, I came closer to God. And then I got closer with God, and then I started understanding the world more. And I understood everything slowly, one by one. And this is why my favorite verse is John 13:7, when Jesus said, you don't understand what I'm doing right now, but later you will. I understand exactly why he put me through everything. While I was a mess up in high school, constantly couldn't stay sober, go to the military, get DHG and basic and AIT. Didn't know I was able to leader. I'm 18 years old, having another 18-year-old kid come to me crying and tell me how it changed his life. Didn't realize it's making that much of an impact. All I cared was just making them better. I didn't realize through their, I was that, I didn't realize that I didn't view myself as special. All I cared about was helping people. Then I realized the intent of that. And then I really diving into the word of God and realizing that's exactly what Jesus's intent was this whole time, was to, all he cared about was uplifting everybody, caring for everybody, and trying to turn people into the ultimate best versions of themselves. But also, you guys got to realize too, is Jesus was a bad dude. Like, not bad, like doing bad things. Like, he was a tough guy. He wasn't just so mediocre, nice guy either. Everybody seems to be. People forget when he went in the church and he was flipping tables and whipping people with a band of thorns for selling in the church. He loved everybody. He wanted to uplift everybody, but he also held people accountable. And he didn't care to hurt people's feelings because he'd rather them know the truth than the lie, and then prevent them from staying exactly where they're at right now. And that's why I'm here. This is why I'm saying all these things right now. Is how I got to this mindset is overall through personal development and building faith and trusting in God over this period of time. And this is, I'm spreading this message intentionally to help sharpen every single one of y'all. It could be 1,000, 100 y'all, 10 of y'all, 1,000, million, whatever. As long as I change one of y'all's lives, that's all that matters. And I just ask you, if you're not, your self-image is one of the most powerful things that help operate in your life as well. And if you look in the mirror and you're not satisfied with yourself, hit the gym. Start going to the gym. Start really putting some discipline in your life, and God will start rewarding you. Then you'll start building that faith. Then God will start speaking to you and start understanding these things that I'm talking about, and how everything in our world is designed to keep us non-disciplined, keep us comfortable, fat, lazy, weak, frail, emotionally undisciplined, watching porn, all of these things, and making us weak overall so they can control us, demoralize us, and preventing us from being the ultimate version of themselves because they don't want us being better. They look at us as peasants, and we have to realize we, the people, are the strongest. We're the ones that make the power of this country. So now y'all get it. I talked about cheap dopamine. What you understand, identify that cheap dopamine. It could be scrolling on TikTok, be watching porn, chasing the weekend for drinks, or you're addicted to drugs. Mental castration. Why are they doing that? They want men to be weak so they can't control us, and no leaders so they can be able to push New World ideology and make us weak over time and be able to control us. And then also that obviously explain why weak men leads to a weak society, why there's men who can't control their emotions, cause killings, abuse others, etc., lead to demoralization in this country as well. No structure, no guidance. And then how at the end of the day, everything I'm talking about is really morals of God, and they're erasing God at the end of the day. And at the moment here's another statistic before I end this show. I want to tell you all this. Back in the 1950s and 60s, over 95% of the population identified as Christian. In the year 2000, it was around 80%. So you had a 15% decrease. Now it's right around 60%. We've had around a 20% decrease in the matter of 24 years, compared from 50 years from 1950 to 2000. Dramatic decrease, and especially from 2010, even more dramatic. And why? And it's almost funny ever since social media. Right? Ever since they influenced social media and keeping people distracted, and then pushing these ideologies and demoralization, what they're teaching kids, gender ideology, critical race theory, constant division, constant seeds of weakness, making men and young boys more frail so they don't grow up to be strong. No difference from what the Romans did to the Greek boys, castrating those boys so they could be able to eliminate those boys of being a future threat to taking over control and revenge against them. That's what we're seeing. And how they do that, they really attack all the morals of God. If you can erase God, if you can erase, if this country wasn't filled with faith, a strong, mentally, physically, spiritually men, we would already be swept under. And that's what's holding us to a thread. And it's never too late. We can start right now. It doesn't matter if you're a teenager or you're in your young 20s or you're older. Like, it's now to start living to the ultimate version of ourselves possible, because not only you're failing yourself, you're mainly failing your family and everybody around you. It's crazy how the moment you start living at that high standard, it trickles out to every single around you, and you start setting an example for your family, your future kids or current kids, etc. And this is one thing I tell dudes around my age. I'm like, look, if your future kids were watching you and seeing how you're living your life right now, would you be proud? Would you be proud to show them the life you're living right now? And a lot of that answer is no. You got to realize, man, when we have some real responsibilities, real kids, and responsible for people, like, we have to be strong. We have to be there. We have to be the ultimate versions of ourselves, or chasing to become the ultimate version of yourself. You'll never become the ultimate version. You're always chasing to become the ultimate version. And that is through disciplinary actions and building faith over time. And God will show you the way. And it's really just living with God's intent and what Jesus was doing. All he did was try to uplift everybody, and he also didn't judge. Everybody was around him was either thieves, murderer, prostitute. Didn't care. He didn't judge them by their skin. He loved and cared for everyone, and he set the example and led them to salvation. He led them to joy, happiness, forgiveness, and getting that hatred out of their heart. And this is where it all starts. I know it's a lot to all swallow in at once. I hope y'all enjoyed everything I was talking about. Like I said, if you guys found any value from this show, any takes on it, drop some comments. Let me know what y'all think. And like I said, you got some value, made you laugh or whatever, you liked what I said or whatever, share the show. Share it to at least one person. The power of one can do so much, because I know this message hits really hard. But it's like I said, I would rather cause temporary discomfort than a permanent grave. I don't care. I want to make sure that my future kids and my family is well taken care of, and we're in a country that's safe and not being taken over. So a lot to unswallow here. I appreciate you guys. This is the first episode of Cheap Dope. I'm going to get better as we get going on. I'm kind of flustering all over the place. Once again, God bless y'all. I'll see y'all on the next episode.
That's how I knew that I was different. I seen it, I thought it, I dreamt it, I said it, I did it, I made it, I tasted it, I love it, I need it.